Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint podcast. I'm Will.
I'm James. Good to see you, Will. How's things there in sunny Melbourne?
It's wonderful. We really turned a corner on the weekend. The sun was out. It felt like a beautiful time. My neighbour just yelled at me when I walked outside and said, "You can feel summer's coming."
Excellent. Hence why you're wearing a thick hoodie inside.
Well, it's actually a Voyager hoodie, so we'll get to that later.
Yes, yeah, a very nice bit of on-brand attire. Excellent. Good stuff.
How are you?
Oh yeah, pretty good. Just about to pack down the tent for the umpteenth time, but we've broken the back of the part of the trip where we're in the tent. We're back with the caravan in about a week's time, temporarily, and we're in the very north of the Kimberley. We were up in this place, Mitchell Falls, recently. The roads have got a little bit rough since I last spoke to you. I now have both the car registration plate and the battery held in place with cable ties after the mount cracked the other day. The closest thing I've had to a shower in the last 5 days was in a waterfall a couple of days ago. So thankfully you can't smell me. And I thought for today's backdrop, we'd go with a giant termite mound that, were the kids a bit younger, I'd still try and convince them was actually a dinosaur turd. But I figured it was the nearest thing to local colour I could give you. And I do have actually one you wouldn't. There's not much in the way of anything up here other than wonderful nature and rock art. But the family and I went for sunset over the Mitchell Plateau the other day, which is sort of very sort of northern part of the Kimberleys, over the waterfalls we would hike to earlier in the day. Got chatting to a young couple called Riley and Lucy, who work. They're sort of mechanical engineers around Port Hedland, that sort of area. They were spending a few weeks in the Kimberley. Talk turned to beer. It turns out they're huge mountain culture fans and actually flew to Sydney from WA recently just to visit Mountain Culture's 3 venues. So I sent Harriet a photo of the sunset and told her, sadly, I don't have Riley and Lucy's number details, but if you are watching, because Riley said he has read some Crafty Pint articles, Harriet says she will shout you some beers when they finally open in Perth. There's no exclusive there. I just said.
I was about to say, what's happening with Rocky Ridge?
Yeah. Where's the exclusive? No, so I said to her that they were devastated that they took on the Hobart and the Melbourne sites, but hadn't taken on Perth. And Harriet says when we do Perth, we'll do it the best way they can, and she'll be happy to shout them beers. So Riley and Lucy, if you want to shoot us your details, I'll pass them on to Harriet for when that happy moment arrives.
Oh no, it probably says a lot about my mindset, but all I could think about that lovely story was how upset they must be that there won't be a Mountain Culture Perth in the next few weeks.
No, but it is a nice touch. I was drinking a Rocky Ridge Gin Dong Juicy at the time, so there was a little bit of synergy there anyway. So, but anyway, that sort of, it's nice to sort of realise that, craft beer is finding its way to these remote parts of Australia in one way or another. And on the topic of travel, we wrapped up Benny's 3-part northern sort of northeast Tasmania travel series this week with another lovely finish. All 3 pieces have been really well received, actually.
Yeah, I think Tasmanians love a bit of coverage of them. Is the lesson I've taken from that? It was good Benny really got to spend a lot of time down there, so it was good to really cover a lot of the state in that way.
Yeah, and I think the line that I really enjoy, he talked about, having the best lobster roll he'd ever had at a place in Ulverston. And he's like, heaven may not be on earth, but if it is, it's a good idea to start looking in Ulverston or something along those lines, which led some interesting comments on the Facebook page.
Yeah, a lot of Ulverston haters out there.
Yeah, it does appear, but also some Ulverston defenders. So it was nice to see them, and there was maybe a bit of Bernie banter as well. So there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, no, talking of travel, we also published a piece this week by Bryony Liebeck from Flavour Logic. She's been writing for us on and off for the last couple of years. Very well known and very well respected in the world of beer education, wine education, cider judging, everything. I think she's judged barrel aged vinegars and all sorts of things over the years, or olive oils or whatever it might be. But she started a short series about how to taste and how to appreciate beer, which she popped up on the site yesterday. Will.
Yeah, it's a really. I think that's useful for everyone. I would say, it's the way she breaks it down. I was like, oh, this is such a wonderful, simple, straightforward language. Whether you sort of love beer and you drink beer and you wanted to understand it better, or sometimes I find like there's so much jargon out there that when I go to do tastings, I'm kind of like, how can I simplify this better, or what's the best way to get this across? And I felt like Bryony really captured that in that article.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's one of those things we've talked about on and off over the last few years. Whether a lot of people in the beer world forgot about the importance of educating consumers and educating staff in venues and bars and breweries and whatever. So I think the more you know, the more you can appreciate beer. So we'll chuck a link to that in the show notes, and Bryony's got some ideas for follow-up pieces to come as well. That was great. Also, like you on the site this week, you went and checked out Bright's pub in Carlton, your old stomping ground as a student.
Yeah, it was great to pop down there. Yeah. So that's a new listing on the site, the Prince Alfred Hotel, PAs as we always called it at uni. I actually didn't realize that they long ago had a listing on the site. So I managed when I went to update it and turn it all back on. This is a bit back of house for everyone, but I got to see the old photos as well, and it really took me back to being in uni. Like I saw the tap bank and was like, wow, I remember drinking Two Brothers Grizz there in about, I don't know, 2012 or something like that.
And Bright's still promising to offer, sort of $6 jugs on a Monday night for students, or is it a rather different affair?
Well, it's definitely they've still got their uni nights. So yeah, that it's still going ahead like that. Yeah, for those who don't know, it's literally opposite Melbourne Uni. I think the uni might even be the landlord as well. So yeah, it's right in that precinct. But it's a pretty exciting part of Melbourne, really, because when the metro tunnel opens, it'll be sort of better connected to the rest of the CBD. Right now, it's right on the outskirts,
Yeah.
so there's a lot happening, and there's going to be a lot of development happening around there too.
Yeah, there's a few funny little pockets like that around Melbourne that might have a new lease of life breathed into them. Good stuff. Also, shout out the Gabs Can Design Awards are open for a sixth time. So, if any brewers or designers out there reckon they've got the best looking cans in the business, there's some details about that we'll put in the show notes as well. If you want to try and become the latest winner there, win some money for your designer and some prizes from Aurora as well. And from cans to another essential part of the beer industry and malt. And I think one of the when we were talking about launching the podcast last year, one of the guests or the sort of the topics we really wanted to get on early was Voyager Craft Malt. And yeah, you and I headed up there a few weeks ago and sat down with Stu, and we even managed to lure Brad, his business partner and lifelong mate, out of the kiln to come and join us for a little while.
Yeah, it was funny. I first met Brad at the ABERS only a couple of months before we went up, and I was like, "Oh, I was always wondering if you were some kind of secret." Stu really ran the business himself, and Brad was some kind of I don't know, tax evasion or something like that. It's great to have them both on. You'll hear that Stu does do a fair bit of the talking for both of them, but it was really good to hear how they came together, and I think their friendship really comes out across in the chat as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've long said I think what Stu and Brad are doing with Voyager is one of the most incredible stories in the entire sort of beer cosmos in Australia in terms of what they're doing, for changing, farming practices or helping people change farming practices, rediscovering old, delicious sort of malt and grain varieties. The new life they're breathing into the region in terms of opportunities, and certainly in partnership with Southern Cotton, opening that just phenomenal Witten Malt House, which attendees at Grainstock will get to see later in the year. And the work they're doing to encourage other small maltsters around Australia. They've won, 2 golds at the World Malt Cup in the States, and just the way they talk is just it's like they were destined to do this, and I think the impact they could have. They probably have no idea the impact they're already having already, and I think the impact they could have long term is quite phenomenal. And obviously, we talked about Grainstock, which is their mainly industry but also consumer event taking place in October. That is pretty exciting and be really cool to see how many people they get out there. It's not just for the brewing industry, but for distillers and for bakers as well. But yeah, it's just they speak very well. And while Brad might not be the most talkative, I think he had the best gag of the whole thing as well when I was talking about when they're entering awards. So we'll leave people to hear his little punchline that comes in during the show. But yeah, it was great to get up there. Lovely backdrop, with their malt house, all their sort of kilns behind them while we were chatting. So if you are one of the people that watches the show on YouTube, I think it's the nicest setup we've had so far.
Yeah, it's a great chat, and obviously Stu and Brad, they really like to champion people around them. That they're very big on the farmers and giving a lot of credit to actually what they're getting into the malt house. Love to talk about the breweries they work with doing great stuff. And if you'd like to talk about people in the beer world or connected to the beer world doing great things, make sure you get your nomination in for our Have You Done a Rallings campaign, where we shout out the good beer citizens out there all over the country. They could be doing anything. And if you'd like to talk about your favorite brewery as well and get some recognition behind them, then make sure you enter our Bluestone Yeast Brewery of the Month campaign. So that's at craftypint.com/bluestone.
Yep, and the Rallings one is craftypint.com/Rallings. I think we're due to pick another winner for Rallings next week's show as well. So if you want to get someone nominated, please get them in ASAP. Quick shout out for our beer club as well, the Crafty Cabal. As we mentioned before, we've got Liz looking after that now, doing some amazing work, sort of redesigning what we're doing in terms of our newsletters and social engagement and stuff like that. The newsletter for this month has just gone out. We've got giveaways with Carbon 6 out of Brisbane, and for Crafted Beer Festival on the Gold Coast, some double passes to give away there. Upcoming events for Cabal members at Brewmanity and at Evil Megacorp in Perth when I get down there in a few weeks' time. So you can check that out at craftykabal.com. I guess which brings us to the main chat after the break, which means Will.
Yeah, enjoy it. And if you do, make sure you leave us a like, subscribe, or review. Cheers.
Cheers.
Placket is Australia's go-to for street-level poster campaigns that cut through the noise. From local brews to global brands, Placket gets your message seen, loud, proud, and right where it matters. Every day, Placket reaches thousands of people through their expansive Australia-wide network. Whether it's street posters, mega sites, indoor cafe posters, or guerrilla activations, they've got you covered. Want to make an impact on the streets? Make Placket part of your next campaign and get in touch today. Phone 03 9354 6611 or visit placket.com. That's PLAKKIT.com. Hey beer lovers, limited tickets are still available for the Point Break Brewery Invitational Beer Festival on Saturday the 16th of August, brought to you by the legends at Blackman's Brewery in Torquay. As my good friend Milo Longbottom reports, it's the Surf Coast social event of the season. An epic day of really good beer, great people, and amazing vibes. There's a rockstar lineup of breweries hitting the red carpet, including Rocky Ridge, Garage Project, Kaiju, Banks, Schlenkerla from Germany, Bright Brewery, Hop Nation, Bridge Road Brewers, and Goodland. Not to mention live music, delicious food, and non-stop good times. Last year's event was a sellout success, and you'll be kicking yourself if you miss this one. Get your tickets now at blackmansbrewery.com.au.
Stu and Brad, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Well, do you want to start there and tell us a little bit about where we are? This is a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah. So we're right now we're situated in the marquee at the Whitten Malt House, which is this beautiful hospitality tourism facility that we're really lucky that we get to sit alongside with our malting facility over in the back. You can see some of the tanks and of our germination vessels there. So we're in a little town called Whitten, right in the heart of the Murrumbidgee irrigation area in the Riverina, southern New South Wales.
Yeah, and I guess going in a very simple sense, what is Voyager? What is Voyager Craft Malt?
Do you answer that one more? Look, we're an on-farm craft malting facility. We work with growers, source a wide variety of grains and malt them for the craft brewing industry, craft distilling, and artisan baking industry as well.
Yeah, and it's your baby, the two of you. But I guess going back before Voyager, like you two aren't just business partners. You've known each other since you were like how old? You were neighbours, is that right? Your families had neighbouring farms or something, is that right?
Yeah. We've been best mates from young age. We went to school together, grew up
Like
playing,
primary school all the way
playing
through.
sports. Yeah, it was at a Berlin Central School. So kindergarten through to year 12.
Yeah.
Went to school together, grew up neighbouring farms, playing sport, riding motorbikes, went to university together, and now in business together.
And studying stuff at uni that would have led to this, or did you heading in other directions?
Yeah, no, definitely for me it was another direction. I studied finance, accounting and finance at university, and some of those has been helpful in running a small business. Stu studied design technology, which certainly came handy a lot, designing all our malting equipment. But not specifically, we didn't at that stage of our lives anyway. We didn't know we were going to be going down this path.
And did you think you'd come back to the town you grew up in or the area, or did you sort of both have visions of leaving at some point?
I probably did. Yeah, I guess I was. I was lucky to be gifted 50 acres for my 12th birthday of our family farm, and farming was kind of all I ever known and all I really wanted to do. Growing up, during the Millennium Drought wasn't a great time to be farming, and kind of the writing was on the wall, I guess, for me, that the farm wasn't going to support mum and dad and myself going back to it. So looked to go and do something else in the meantime. With always the plan was to go back to the farm. And the design technology degree I did was essentially to let me teach at TAFEs and colleges of a night time, so I could work on the farm during the day. And things kind of changed when we got to uni, and met a girl that became my wife. But myself and Brad also got into, we're very competitive, myself and Brad. We've done a lot of things together, but we've got into home brewing, and it was just kind of trying to outdo each other, and ultimately led to making some malt and starting a malting facility.
Who made the best beer?
Oh yeah.
I won the most awards at national levels on home brewing front, and then we changed tack to malting from there. So not sure what happened there.
What were your specialty?
The irony was
beer
that
stars?
Brad won. I think he won 3 trophies with the one beer that he entered in 3 different categories. So
Has the beer come back on a commercial scale? Have you lent your recipe to anybody to, make it happen?
I couldn't even recreate it myself after many attempts. So.
We actually, getting into malting, we were kind of, one of the, I guess, advantages for us was that we thought we were going to be brewing all the time. We're like, we're testing every batch of malt. We're going to be doing so much brewing. And I think I've brewed once to show one of our staff members, and I think you've brewed ever since then. We just haven't had time. And
But wasn't the plan when you came back here to open a brewery, and then you with your finance background went, mate, no, is that right?
We did do a bit of a study sat down over the weekend and ran some numbers with another friend who was a brewer as well, and just the tyranny of distance, and this is back before craft beer was huge. It was probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and we couldn't make it work out where we are. But then at the same stage, the craft malting industry in America was starting to take shape. They formed a guild over there, and it looked like it was evolving into something, and we sort of thought to ourselves, we're in the prime barley growing area of Australia here. We know a lot about grain handling and growing good barley. Maybe that's a focus that we should look at.
I think we kind of got our brewing fixed through the Berlin Beer project as well. Like that was, I guess, a good feasibility. So when Brad ran the numbers and was we just can't make this work, we were still fairly committed to really wanting to champion the local barley that had been growing and taken it through to a beer. And we thought that maybe if we crowdsource this, and Berlin's a population of 300, and we ended up raising nearly close to $50,000 just through the local community, saying, hey, look, if you can give us some money, we put together a non-for-profit organisation, and we set out this mission of taking some local barley, getting it put into a beer for our community, and really telling that story of provenance and the farmer. And we kind of soon discovered in that process that there was no real opportunities to go and get a ton of barley malted somewhere. And
so everything that was being grown then was being transported, hours and hours away to be malted, and then moved on wherever else. Yeah,
that's right. Yep.
Yeah, so we launched that beer, and it's still brewed today. You can get it the cellar door here behind us. But I guess that played a big part in us eventually creating that opportunity for that we did for Barrel and Beer for other brewers and distillers and bakers, being able to tell a story of provenance and yeah.
And how soon from the fundraiser did you move on to launching, I guess, the first stage of Voyager?
It took a couple of years. There was a lot of research went on in that period, and we travelled around a bit and internationally and nationally, and spoke to a lot of people, and probably evolved over a little while. We started building our own equipment that Stu designed out in the farm, and doing some trial batches and things to work out if we could make it work, and then.
And you were teaching at the time, is that right? What were you doing, Brad, while this was happening?
Yeah, I was working in finance while we're backgrounding all that. That's right. Yeah, and then it must have been 2016 that we bit the bullet and jumped in head first.
Yeah, and that was very close to where we are now. Is that right? You put the first shed in?
Yes, it's just behind us, probably 5 kilometres away.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a story on how we got set up at this location. My wife was in a mothers group meeting with probably complaining about our obsession with starting this malt house. And
I was going to say, what did people think when you came to them and said, like, we've got this vision to build this malting operation here? So your wife was clearly quite sort of down on the idea.
She's probably just sick of hearing me bang on about it. But there was another member of the mothers group who worked out not far from where we are now, who knew of a site that had been built originally for an ethanol plant, which is similar in a lot of ways to a malting facility, and it didn't go ahead, but the structure was there. There was a lab set up, and there was silos there and a weighbridge and a lot of grain infrastructure. And then right next door was a stainless steel manufacturing business, all tied into one. So we came out and had a look and couldn't believe our luck. Half an hour from where we live, sort of thing, is a facility that's waiting, ready to be turned into a malt house.
Yeah. What was the intention? I mean, you're saying you saw an opportunity to I guess produce small batch malt. Was there a vision beyond that? Was it like, we can do something more for the region, or at that time was it like we can offer something that's more tailored to small breweries or what have you?
Yeah, I don't really know if we had much of a plan. Like, I think it was more so, can we do this? Can we design something and make some malt? And then it just kind of evolved from there, really. I don't think we kind of sat down and said we need to make X amount of tons and get to here and here. It was like, I think if we design a system like this, I think it might work. And then we did it and it didn't work, and then we'd change it and try again. And we just kind of kept on making mistakes and changing things. And then before we knew it, we had we're supplying half a dozen breweries, and they were kind of then relying on us because they'd designed some beers around what we'd done. And then a few more customers had come on, and then, we need to expand and put another system in to try and keep up. And that's,
I guess the driver, though, like, we did talk to a lot of people and brewers that we knew in the industry, and there was a genuine interest in knowing where their malt came from, I suppose. And that's something that we thought we could do really well on quite a small scale, because we can have that segmentation and provide and still today, malt that goes out still references the area that it was grown from, and that's something that we started very early on, and brewers really appreciated that, being able to tell the story of the farmer and the location of where that grain came from in their beers. So.
And they often come out to meet the farmers and stuff, don't they? Like, that there's sort of a full connection there for a lot of those breweries now.
Yeah, definitely. And that having this facility next door to us, like the villas that we've got that you guys stayed in last night, like it's such a unique experience to to have them get out of the daily grind of brewing and come out here for a night or two away and get out and meet some of the farmers and see just the passion that some of these farmers have. We know how passionate brewers are in general. To see growers that have got the same passion that they do, and it's kind of probably one of my proudest achievements is that seeing that connection between putting a smile on a farmer's face and giving them some purpose and some meaning in terms of what they do. It's a pretty unique opportunity, I guess, that we've created for brewers and farmers to meet.
How did you find your first brewing customers? Like, were you involved in industry in some other way? Like, how did you bring likes of Batch and Wildflower on board in the first place?
We'd been involved. Like, we're both members of the Canberra Brewers Club, which has been a pretty amazing breeding ground for some of the brewing industry now, in terms of the people that have come through the Canberra Brewers there. But so we had some connections through that. But the guys at Batch Brewing were probably, and Topher was working with them at the time. I'm not sure how, they just reached out to us, and they basically, we could make 1 ton a week in the early days, and they agreed to take 1 ton a week and provide us feedback and really work with us to, we owe a great deal to the work that Batch did in the early days, sticking by us and taking some pretty ordinary malt at times that we reflect back on that we're sending them. And still to this day, we've still got a great relationship with the guys at Batch, and they come down here fairly often and hang out. So it's been a great relationship through there. And then it was just word of mouth, I guess. We kind of we didn't really in the early days have the production capacity to supply too many other people, we just kind of word spread, and we take on a few more. And
where were you getting the first batch? First lot of barley from? Was that from your?
Was it from my paddock? Back then, the 50 acres, I was growing some older kind of unique varieties, and
what were you doing with it before you could malt it yourself? What were you sending it off elsewhere when you'd grown the barley, or?
Growing other cereal grains, barley at times, wheat as well.
I'd say, how much of a gift is being given 50 acres? It sounds like a hard work 12th birthday present. It's not like getting a Nintendo Switch or something like that.
I use this joke quite a bit. So most people probably have heard it before, but it's kind of be argued that it was, could have been more a form of child abuse, giving a kid 50 acres right before 10 years of drought. I remember the first year I had it, I was 12 and grew an amazing wheat crop. And Mum and Dad, they didn't give me any assistance. It was like, here you go, you're going to make some mistakes, but you'll learn from that. And the first year grew a bumper wheat crop and grossed about, I think, $12,000, which was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money today, but for a 12-year-old kid to have that kind of money back then, I don't even know what I spent it on. Like, it was
probably ice creams or something.
Well, I do have this memory of the Borellan show of me just being the man giving out Dodgem car left, right, and centre. And then what followed after that was 10 years of not really harvesting a crop at all. So it was a tough lesson to learn as a 12-year-old kid to put some money aside for the bad times.
What did you get for your 12th birthday, Brad?
Oh, not that. Not 50 acres. I have no idea.
That you go on a Dodgem car ride.
Interesting. I actually lost the 50 acres to Brad in a state of origin bet one year. Brad goes for Queensland for some reason, and the Maroons beat the Blues, and we had a bet of. I
had some sheep. I had 100 head of ewes or something, and I put them up and won. So technically that's my 50 acres.
You're the majority shareholder in Voyager on the back of that bet. And how have you gone about growing? Because obviously, you one ton a week, and now you've got this, incredible, operation behind you. But it's got in a number of stages, but also pretty rapidly as well.
It did. It was a snowball effect, and it started very slowly. It was certainly, and I'm sure any small business will say the same thing. But the first 12 months, 2 years was really hard work, and we had a lot of ups and downs, and many more downs than ups. And then from there, things started to, as that snowball gets bigger, it sort of gains its own momentum, and things started to improve. So we stepped up production capacity a few times through those stages, and then
still with your own designed and built machinery
at
that stage.
Still back over on the original site, and then eventually got to a point to do a greenfield site and expand out in a significant expansion.
And how much are you doing a week now from 1 ton?
Close to 150.
It's it does seem like a bit of a blur now, but thinking back to those early days, like it was tough. I think, for a couple of years there between myself and Brad, one of us was on site nearly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round. We didn't have the automation or control we have now, so we had to be there monitoring things. It's a living, breathing, entity, malt. So you've got to be there at all hours of the night. We were loading the kiln as well, and it was to think back to it was certainly tough back.
Definitely.
And what gave you the confidence to raise the money to go and build something, this substantial?
I get one of the things we probably didn't allow for, like we've been really passionate about beer right from the start, but it was probably the distilling scene. Like we kind of took us a bit by surprise. We, for some reason, kind of just assumed that distillers wouldn't be interested in what we've got. They're after cheap, ethanol, and they're not going to get that from us. But a ton of malt makes 100 kegs of beer. That same ton of malt makes 1 barrel of whiskey. So you're taking so much product and condensing it down. You can really start to see any little nuance in grain variety or farming practice or those kind of things. So that was a bit of an opener for us, and it really opened up a very rapidly growing market that we didn't really account for. And the distilling industry, like craft brewing, has gone through some huge expansion of late, and it was really I guess a couple of distillers there that had based some products around some unique grains that we had, and for them to get to where they needed to be, we had to go along for the ride with them.
Yeah. And you mentioned unique grains there. That's been a very central part of the Voyager story. Can you tell us about sort of the background and why you sort of started, I guess, encouraging farmers to grow either heritage varieties or even going to the seed banks and like experimenting with, either sort of forgotten or historic grains?
Yeah, I think probably from myself, growing up on our farm and even now, I think I've got a pretty impressive veggie garden. I like to grow a lot of old heirloom seeds and those kind of things. And tomatoes is a great analogy because you can go and get a tomato off the shelf at Coles and Woolies and bite into it, and it kind of probably tastes more like a potato than it does a tomato. Growing these older heirloom varieties, they're just completely different in terms of flavour and it just seemed like a natural progression that we look at all the breeding that's gone into any kind of agricultural commodity. It's all been around efficiency and all these great things, but it's often been at the sacrifice of flavour, and that's that's what we do. We don't produce bulk commodity malt. We're here to create malts that brewers and distillers, craft brewers and distillers can kind of leverage off to give them new flavors to work with. And we've just found that the further back in time we go resurrecting these varieties, the more interesting it is to visually, even to chew on, to the aromas from it. So it kind of made sense to start going back and resurrecting some of these older varieties. So getting from the seeds gene bank, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. I remember planting them into pot plants and harvesting with scissors, and then planting them out into a bit bigger of a veggie garden, and then migrating to smaller plots of my 50 acres, and then getting up to some decent volumes now where guys like Chris and Sam Greenwood are able to grow those. And I'll just make another point about these heirloom grains for people like Chris that are that Chris actually discovered us wanting to he heard that we were needing these older heirloom varieties. Him in his organic farming system can't use synthetic fertilizers or chemicals or nitrogenous fertilizers. So these older varieties grow much better in those farming systems. They compete better with weeds, and so it just kind of seems to work well for everyone.
And talking of child abuse, tell us how you work with the local school in sort of getting new varieties scaled up.
Yeah. Look, that's probably something I'm really proud of. Actually, was the amount of work that was involved in planning these trials, and we did it for a couple of years here on site. Growing a lot of different varieties. I think we grew 30 or 40 different varieties of rye, and there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of work at the time when we're busiest, when it's harvest time. We've got grain coming in, and brewers are ramping up, so we've got malt being dispatched, and then we've got to go out and harvest these grains with scissors. So we teamed up with the local high school here at Griffith High, and in their year 11, 12 ag class now, the students come and they take one of the small varieties and they collect a heap of data on it for us. They plant it, harvest it, bring the seeds back here, and where we can run some analysis on it and go from there. So
maybe it's child labour more than child abuse, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. But it's I think it's great. These kids have come to a facility like this and see the where grain ends up in terms of baked products and beer and spirits, and certainly gets them a lot more interested about about the industry, and hopefully encourage them to make some good choices around their beer and spirit drinking moving forward.
Is there any like variety coming through or anything that you're super excited about, or whether it could be a little bit newer, or
we
are you
have
producing already?
just released one at the moment called Cape Barley. We've run it a little bit in the past, but Cape is an old 6-row variety that was the variety that Cascade Brewery in Hobart was using back in 1824 for half a dozen years back then. And some of the comments in some old newspapers were that they found it far better than some of the imported malts and what they were using at the time. So we've got a couple of breweries that have been itching to get their hands on it. I think we mentioned Evan at Bendigo there, and Topher with his cask ales that he's doing now. So and it's one that Chris Greenwood's been pushing a lot as well, because he loves growing. It's one that really performs well on his farm and in his farming system. So
So how are you sort of finding these? Are you sort of talking to the universities and seed banks, or are you reading old stuff on newspapers on Trove and trying to dig into what breweries? Where's it sort of come from?
A bit of everything, I guess. One, the catalogues that you can get from the Seeds Gene Bank are pretty impressive. They're, some of these are 10, 20,000 varieties in there. Some of them have just got a number. Some of them have got an interesting, a cool name, and some of them have got a bit more data about what it was bred from, or what some issues were from it. So it's kind of been a bit of research, a bit of trial and error, a bit of picking some things that have got a cool name, and
and do they all work the same way once they get here? Is there a similar process I guess in simple terms for listeners or viewers, like what happens once the grain gets here and before it leaves?
In terms of these older varieties, some of them the grain doesn't even get here. Some of them aren't being grown because they're just complete disasters. We grew some rye that just didn't produce any seed at all. I think it's a bit of a balancing act as well, bringing back these varieties. You start off with such a really small amount of seeds. It's then, when do you start sacrificing, taking some of those grains that you could use to bulk up stock to run through as malt and start doing some sensory evaluations and those kind of things. So it is a bit of a balancing act. They all don't make it here, but we kind of talk a lot with distillers and brewers about what they're after and what they're interested in, and anything that kind of throws some unique traits or characteristics are ones that we'll kind of earmark and look to kind of ramp up through the school.
But you'll take pretty much any grain that will work, and you'll do whatever they want to it in terms of smoking as well. Like you've got a pretty bespoke offering here.
And that was kind of one of the reasons, I guess, in designing our own equipment, was that we wanted to not just malt barley. We do rye and wheat and other cereal grains, but we've also run through pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, millet, rice, corn, oats. There's kind of no limit to any seed, grain, or legume that you can malt. Wattle seeds.
What's the division of labour like? You do a lot of the talking, the face of Voyager. Brad, like, what's your sort of, your, I guess, empire within the Voyager operation?
Yeah, broadly speaking, I manage the production side of things. So the team that we've got and making the malt, and broadly Stu handles the custom facing side. So it's a yin and yang that works well for us.
And in simple terms, like, how does the production work? You take raw grain comes in, and what's the I guess, without getting into too much detail, the process it goes through before it's bagged up and sent out?
Yeah, it's more or less a 7-day process, the malting process. So raw grain comes in, it's cleaned, it steeps in water for 1 or 2 days. Transfers into a germination vessel where it's germinating in there, depending on what grain and what malt we're trying to make, but it can be anywhere between 3 and 6 or 7 days. And then So we dry that back out to halt germination, halt the modification of the enzymes and the release of enzymes and the modification of the starches, and dry that back out. And depending on what sort of times and temperatures we used in the kilning process gives us different malt flavors as well. So and then the vessel's unloaded and reloaded, and we reset and go again week on week. So that's in a nutshell. Yeah, that's the malting process, and from there the malt gets cleaned up again, and then either packaged into 25 kilo bulk bag or bulk truck.
Yeah. And in the meantime, you've got a lot of silos storing, I guess, every single grain you make as well.
Yeah, so that's part of the intention of Voyager being in business was to create all that segregation and that traceability for the brewers, and that was really easy when we were running 1 ton a week when we first started. Much more difficult now when we're running multiple batches a week and much more larger volumes. So sort of you'll see behind us that we've got many small silos as opposed to a couple of big large bunkers or silos, which if we were consolidating everything and processing like that, it'd be very different. So that whole segregation thing, it's a really good thing. It's something that we're passionate and proud about. But it also causes a lot more
management
headaches.
Yeah, and costs a lot more. Costs a lot more as well.
Yeah. And I'd love to come back after the break and have a chat about wider sustainability and I guess the impact you're having on the industry and the area here. Before we get to that, though, there's more than just the malting operation here now. Can you tell us a little bit about the Witton Malt House and how that's all come about? Creating this amazing destination within the region.
At the moment, we're at the Witton Malt House. Behind that is Voyager, which is the malting operation. Behind that is Southern Cotton, which is a cotton gin. And we approached them to do a bit of a joint venture and when we did our expansion at Voyager. And as part of that, they said we'd like to do a little cellar door on the side that showcases the beers and whiskies made with your malt. And that was really good. We thought, great idea. And then each time we had a meeting, there was another idea thrown up about another function that could happen. Or one of the directors of Southern Cotton is a mad golfer, so there's a golf chipping range into the water, and another director is part of Murray Cod Australia. So in one end of the lake behind us, we've got stocked with Murray cod that you can catch. You can grab a fishing rod and reel in some Murray cod. So meeting after meeting, and it evolved into something much more bigger than a toasted sandwich maker and a coffee machine that was sort of going to be the original plan. And it's evolved into something that's a tremendous facility and really designed to showcase not just our the beers and whiskies made with our malt, but also all Riverina produce. And there's a whole variety of things that you can get at the Malt House there that showcase the regional things that are to offer. So we eventually had to stop having meetings because it was getting out of control.
Where's the roller coaster going in? But as we're talking now, I mean, there's a caravan park going in, tennis courts. Like, it's still an evolving beast.
It is, and it's crazy to think that, was it 3 or 4 years ago, this was a paddock growing grain for us. It's kind of. I still pinch myself coming in to work every day, just how it's evolved. It's a great asset for the region and the community. We're really lucky to have it situated right alongside a grain processing facility. I don't think there'd be anything in the world that would come close to something like this. But the guys behind Southern Cotton, essentially they were 4 or 5 farmers that were have really kind of quite entrepreneurial, and many of them were growing grain for us when we were at the old site, and we developed a really good relationship with them there. And I think that I think initially the cellar door was kind of our we always wanted a cellar door. Like, one of the things we learned at the old site was we had this influx of brewers wanting to come out and visit and see what we were doing, and we had a kegerator with 10 taps outside of it, and so we were keen on having some kind of opportunity for brewers, a small little bar for brewers and distillers to come down and taste what malted corn tastes like in a whiskey or in a beer or whatever. But it was certainly going to be nothing like this, or nothing that was going to be open to the public. Really, it was just something that we were going to have for our clients. So to have something like this alongside us is pretty special.
Right. Well, let's take a quick break. Cheers.
Cheers.
G'day guys, it's Craig here, and we're back breaking down beer styles with Josh from Mogwai Labs. And today we're joined by Nick Phillips from the Rube Goldberg Brewing Machine. Today we're talking all things dark beer. It is the Schwarzbier or Schwarzbier, however you pronounce it. I'm not sure. Mate, Josh, give me the background on this beer style. What's it all about?
Yeah, sure. So, the name of the beer, it just translates in German to dark beer. So very, very literal. The origin of the beer, I believe, comes from Kurz-Ritzer in Germany. And outside of breweries like Kurz-Ritzer, in the German region, it's not an overly popular style brewed throughout the world. So in terms of classic Australian examples that do this beer style, there's nothing that really waves the flag for it. But that's really exciting, I think. So in terms of the lager movement in the independent craft beer industry here in Australia, with a lot more craft breweries delving into lagers, taking their lager programs more seriously, it means that these breweries are starting to wave the flag for styles like this.
There's a real opportunity there for someone to take the Schwarzbier mantle.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think a really brief overview in terms of the flavor profile of this beer. It's an easy drinking dark lager where the slight emphasis is on making sure that it's just got a bit of slight roasty profile in the tasting notes for it, and that's just to help increase the drinkability of the beer.
Nice.
On it anyway.
And mate, what role? Obviously, I think in a lot of roasty beers, yeast plays a really important part. What does I guess the yeast bring to the table here?
For Rube Goldberg and Nick's example for this style, they've used our Belvigor Helles strain, which is the Augustiner strain from Germany. And the beauty of this strain is that it really emphasizes a smooth, malty profile, low ester production, and really, just emphasizes a smooth finish in these beer styles.
Yeah, nice. Well, Nick, let's talk about that. You've got a dark beer festival coming up, is that right?
Yeah, we got our Dark House Beer Festival Friday the 1st and Saturday the 2nd here.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, showcasing a bunch of different dark beer styles, lagers and ales. Don't have any Schwarzbier on, but it is one of our sort of beers that we have on tap very regularly.
Okay, so it's almost a semi-permanent addition to the lineup?
Yeah, it's permanent as things get here a lot. Schwarzbier is one of the styles that's become pretty near and dear to my heart as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And how do you approach brewing that style? Like, what's your sort of philosophy there?
Understanding Schwarzbier, there's a couple of, it's a very regional style in Germany. We model ours off a Thuringian style Schwarzbier, which the Franconian and Thuringian styles tend to be a little bit more balanced with the caramel malt and the roast, whereas a lot of people think of a more contemporary, what has sort of become a more Munich Schwarzbier, which is the much more roasty, more like what the Kottritzer in Germany is, where it's a very well fermented but just nicely roasty beer. Ours is much more of a rounded malt profile, and using the Belfagor's Helles yeast that just creates such a smooth, easy drinking lager, as much as those sort of descriptive words don't describe a lot, but when you drink it, it's just a great malty beer. So it ticks all the boxes as a dark beer lover for me as well.
Yeah, nice. And how do you find consumers enjoy it? I mean, it's a little bit of a mind bender when you're telling a consumer it's a lager, but it's a roasty, malty beast of a beer. How's the reaction been?
Really good. I mean, it sells fantastically here. We do a lot more lager styles than a lot of breweries. We really lean heavily into sort of New World lagers and doing traditional styles with newer world malts from places like Voyager and hops from Ryefield. But it's one that sells so well here. People come in and look for a dark beer. We usually have that or a Czech dark lager, a Tmave Lizak on, and people love them because they often don't know what they are. And you just say, what's the dark one? And they'll get a Schwarzbier and they always come back for another couple.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And any kind of tips or tricks, things you've learned along the way brewing this style?
Yeah, know your fermentation. The trick to any good beer, but particularly with lager styles, is to ferment them. You need that really good, healthy pitchy yeast at the start. You got to treat your yeast well, repitching, and knowing your vessels and what temperature is best for you. A couple of degrees can make a huge difference to these beers and throw the balance, that malty profile off. If you start to get some of those more sulfur esters come in, it really ruins the beer. You want that smooth, round malt character.
That is a great tip. It's all in the fermentation. And guys, if you're listening and you're thinking Schwarzbier, however we say it, and I'm hoping I get lots of comments back on how I do actually pronounce it, make sure you chat to Mogwai Labs. They've got all the yeast that can get you set up for success. Guys, thank you so much. Nick, Josh, really appreciate your time.
Thank you. No worries.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome back. And do you want to tell us a little bit about Grainstock?
Yeah, Grainstock is an event we're running this year, 9th, 10th, 11th of October. And it's really a celebration of grain. I guess there's two main reasons for doing it. And probably the easiest way to describe it is really what we're trying to recreate is what Ben and Maria and HBA have done with High Country Hops. I think anyone in the beer industry knows what a great event and festival that is, and putting that spotlight back on the agricultural products that go into beer. But for myself, going to that festival, what I also love about it is the benefit to the local economy. You can't get accommodation; it's sold out. The cafes are packed in the mornings. To have something like that here, I think is based around grain. It's at the start of the grain harvest time, a time when we've normally got a lot of breweries coming to visit anyway. So one, it's really about celebrating all the fantastic things that are happening in grain, and it's not just from us. We've got the support from Joe Whites and Barrett Person, who are the first two major sponsors to jump on board, who have got many growers and grain receival sites out here as well. So it's really about celebrating all the work that's happening in that grain space. But the other side of things is also what I really want to do is just bring our industry together. I think it's obviously a challenging time for everyone. That includes suppliers. When breweries are hurting, that flows further up the supply chain. And I don't think there's been a time, that it's needed more in our industry than now. And with BrewCon not going ahead and Good Beer Week, and I think we kind of need to just come together and realise that hey, the reasons we got into the industry was because we're passionate about what we do and we love the people that are involved in it. I think those two things haven't changed. So we're really looking forward to hosting an event here for everyone to get excited about grain, but just have a good catch up.
And what's the format of the 3 days then? So there's going to be obviously like an industry networking side of things, conference, party, like what's the
structure? So look, and again, really just following in the footsteps of what High Country Hops have done. So a day of tours, visiting trial plots, breeding, Australian Grain Technologies just up the road with their breeding sites, the DPI as well with some of their perennial grains, Chris and Sam Greenwoods, and then also visiting grain receival sites. And what we're kind of doing, so that there will be some tours leaving from here, but as I mentioned before, we had some great support from Barrett's and Joe's, who are sponsoring chartered buses out of the major cities. So the plan is that brewers can jump on jump on one of these buses in Sydney or Melbourne, maybe visit one of the malting facilities that the big guys have got there, and then make the pilgrimage out to Whitton via a few farmers and grain receiver sites. It'll be a pretty good bus. I'm actually trying to work out how I can get to the city and get on the bus to come back out here again.
And pick your car up somehow.
yeah, exactly. And then, welcome drinks and a bit of a party in town at Griffith. We've got some great accommodation here, but we're kind of expecting we might get around the 300 to 400 industry delegates here, keeping in mind that malt is also used by distilleries and bakeries, so we'll be opening it to them as well. So we're hoping that a lot of delegates will be camped or staying in Griffith, and we'll have buses bringing them in and out. The next day will be the symposium here at this phenomenal facility, where we're making use of all the different spaces that we've got here in terms of talks around brewing, distilling, regenerative farming, all those kind of things, and be a bit of a trade show as well. Without BrewCon and some of these events going ahead, we really want to have an opportunity that suppliers can come and still get in front of brewers and not really have to pay a lot of money to do it. It's not like we're having to hire a huge facility in the city and those kind of things. So we're hoping that it'll be really well supported by other industry suppliers as well. And then the last day, a festival in town, which is really just an extension of the Blood, Sweat and Beers beer festival that has been run in the past. But it'll focus more around that relationship between grain and the products that grain's made from, including beer, spirits, and baked goods.
And can you talk about the music side of things at this stage, or is that too early in the discussion?
Well, I've got a couple of plans. One of them is I'm always just amazed at how many brewers are musicians themselves. So I would love to pull off some kind of a stage where it's get up and have a play and
dust down the guitars and the decks or whatever.
Yeah. But we'll see. I do have a habit of kind of biting off more than I can chew, and I might have overextended myself already. But in saying that. I think what we're really trying to leverage off is running the whole event a bit like a footy netball club, where everyone just chips in and helps out. And the support we've had from industry so far has been brilliant. People saying, "Hey, look, I'm happy to be essentially a tour guide on the bus, or I'm happy to come and cook a barbecue, or I'm happy to set up some miracle boxes for the festival," or it's been really overwhelming to have that response back from it. It's like, I guess it's kind of expected it. Like, we know what our industry is about, but it does make you feel really good about the industry we work in when you've got people putting their hands up left, right, and centre to help out. So I've just got to be better at delegating, and hopefully it'll all work out.
And we've touched a bit on the Greenwood farm, and I know regenerative malt will be a part of the conversation there. Do you want to tell us a bit more about whether the Greenwoods and what they do, and also what some of the farmers in the area are doing?
Yeah. I think anyone, you guys have gone and visited Chris and Sam and seen what he's doing there. It's really mind blowing what Chris does. Like he is him and Sam and their family. They I still remember the first time I went to their farm. And it was even life changing for me, who'd been growing or farming since I was 12. I think that there's a lot of great things in terms of the regen ag space that's happening around a lot of farms here. And I think we really want to try and promote and showcase that. Ultimately, farmers farming in that way need we need people to buy that product and see value in it, and we're lucky that a lot of brewers and distillers do see that value.
And for those who are new to the term, can you explain sort of what regen ag is, and I guess the benefits you see it bringing, just the whole wider region and farmers specifically?
Well, I guess without getting too deep in it, the easiest explanation is that it's farming in a way that enhances the environment, is good for the environment. It's more so farmers focusing on growing their ecosystem or growing the soil rather than growing a crop. I think look at industrial farming has kind of all been about how do we grow a crop, and it's led to heavy use of synthetic chemicals and nitrogenous fertilizers, and you could talk about the impact that that's had on the environment for a long time, but there's also the impact that it's had on society, and something like the increase in motor neurone disease over the last 30 years, and here in the Riverina right now, you're 7 times more likely to be diagnosed with MND than you are anywhere else, and it's we're in the food bowl of essentially the food bowl of Australia. Really, we are here. Like it's no mystery where that's coming from. So and just a bit of a side point. We've actually got the guys from Brumanity, sorry, Brumanity that put that, I mentioned to them. So they're actually at the golfing, Aqua Golf over here, running a fundraiser during the Grain Stock Symposium. We've got prizes donated from some some of the great suppliers that we've got in our industry, but brewers can make a donation to to Brumanity, who are going to run that that golfing for us to raise some money for and shed a bit of a light on MND, but probably more so the impact that some of the industrialized farming methods, which kind of resemble more like mining than they do any kind of farming, traditional farming methods. So it's something we're really passionate about, because this is our home. We live here. Our families are here, and you kind of see over time the impact that kind of farming has on the environment, on the landscape, soil erosion and dust storms, and the impact that the flow impact that it has on communities. So something we are pretty passionate about.
Are you finding that farmers are looking at what you guys are doing, and maybe the price that some farmers are getting for their specialty grains, and maybe the more consistent and successful crops that like the Greenwoods are getting in changing conditions? Are people looking and going, it's going to be hardwood, but we're going to switch? He's seeing farmers been willing to try these techniques?
I don't think there's any farmer that enjoys getting dressed up in a hazmat suit and thinks they're doing a great thing. Like I think a lot of them have seen over the time the impact that kind of farming has had. I don't think any farmer really wants to be farming the way they currently are. I think they all want to use less chemical and produce better crop in a cleaner way, and pass the farm down to their kids in a better a better state than it is at the moment. When we started, we kind of thought that one of the real challenge, I remember talking about one of the real challenges, was how are we going to get farmers to grow these older varieties, and how are we going to get them to grow some of these grains for us? And the reality has been that we've actually had farmers knocking on our door wanting to not necessarily grow old varieties, but want to have a connection to, they want their beer in a whiskey. They want to be able to take a 6-pack of beer to a Christmas party or to a mate's barbecue and know that their grain is in it. They want brewers coming out, visiting them on their farm, I think we play an important role in showing farmers that there is a market, there is a way forward. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and
And are you finding there's a growing interest from brewers in using these grains as well? Like you've got some pretty, a sizable list of big and small customers now using this, the regen stuff as well.
Yeah, we do. I think that there's been a bit of a change of late in terms of some of our volumes have plateaued out in some of those grains. I think that's purely just because a lot of the breweries that we work with are just focusing less on wholesale. They're realizing that, hey, if we just go back to the tap room, maybe the plan that we had at the start, we've actually got a really viable business here, and we can have a bit of fun, and we can we've got a bit more opportunity to play around with some of these other varieties and support regenerative farming practices. So whilst some of the volumes have plateaued out, we've certainly seen an increase in the amount of brewers that are using some of these grains, and particularly the organic and the regen stuff.
Yeah, and if people choose to buy beers made with that grain, I guess what's the end goal in terms of the benefits for the farmers and then the planet? I don't, because I get you, I'm sure you, Brad, and a few others out there get quite evangelical about it once you understand the benefits it can bring.
I think the end goal is that it just becomes the norm. I
Yeah.
think that, and we've come off the back of kind of 5 really, really wet years. But I think once we throw a couple of dry ones in there, you'll start seeing farmers like Chris, with potentially the soil's capacity to hold moisture and conserve moisture in terms of a lot of the cover crops he's growing, and the work he's putting into these sunflowers and these plants that really open that soil up to draw the moisture in rather than just having it run off. I think then you'll see farmers like Chris actually producing higher yields than some of the conventional farming methods.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we're supporting these kind of guys at the moment. So there's some shining examples when things do get tough and dry, and people go, well, actually, it actually works. Now I've got the confidence to head down that path as well.
Because otherwise, you're basically using fertilizer, more and more fertilizer every year, and farmers are more aware of that than anyone else, aren't they? Like, it has to go up and up and up.
Yeah, and chemical, and we know the reliance on that, and the cost of it's going up as well. So there's also a heavy input cost there as well. So I think that I think I'm pretty positive about where things are heading. I think we've got enough. What Chris is doing 10 years ago, and even when I was growing, he would have been seen as a weirdo. People looking at the fence going, what the hell is that guy doing? Like, he is crazy. And now there's enough conventional farmers looking over the fence going, geez, he's onto something there. Like, look at the crop he's grown. He's got, look at he's got no weed pressure. He hasn't sprayed it. His yields are comparable to what we're getting in drier years. I think that there's enough little shining examples out there now that other farmers are seeing that, they're onto something.
Yeah. I guess aside from inspiring, farmers to try something different, you've been inspiring and helping other maltsters as well. I know you've spent some time over in WA. You spent time over there as well, Brad, like helping other small operations get up and running like you guys are.
Yeah. So we have. So we done a bit of consultancy work for a few malt houses. One of them in particular is the guys at Malacup Malt over in WA. But there's no shortage of maltsters over there now. They've got the Mortlock Malt and Loam as well over there. Look, I think Australia's a pretty unique place in terms that, I'd argue that most breweries wouldn't need to travel too far to be in the middle of a barley field. If you have a look at the grain growing region that stretches all out the east coast, it's basically where breweries are. So we have this awesome opportunity here that the expectation should be in maybe 20 years' time that you go to a local brewery, they're using local grain.
Okay.
For that to kind of happen, we need local malt houses as well. Our story was always about utilising local grain and championing that, the terroir and the provenance and the farmer and that, like, when you create that local kind of grain economy, it's a great story, but it's also great for the local town and the local region. And the local breweries, everyone kind of benefits from it. So it makes no sense that we'd be, sending grain all the way across or sending malt all the way across to WA. They grow amazing grain there. We can grow amazing grain in most parts of Australia.
So you don't see it as creating competition for yourselves by helping these people get up and running?
I think the same way that a brewery would look at another brewery, setting up, up the road, or another brewery moving into Marrickville. Everyone there, encourages that, and they see it as better for everyone. Like, it raises more awareness about local grain and raises that profile that I really think we don't leverage enough of in beer, and that beer is an agricultural product. Like, it's got a great story like wine does in terms of passionate farmers and the people behind it all the way up the supply chain that are as passionate about brewing beer as brewers are. They're as passionate in their own region, their own area as well.
Talking of great grain, you've won 2 Malt Cup trophies in the last few years. Do you want to tell us about that? And Brad, in charge of production, is it like breweries where they brew special batches of beer to put into ABAs? You're going, I'm going to put extra love into this batch, this batch of malt going through, or how did it come about? How does it feel to get those trophies?
Every batch of malt gets maximum love.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely not, because we forget about the awards every year, and we end up sending them off. I think we've entered 3 times, and we won. Was it the ale malt best ale malt back in, when was it, 2023, was it? Or it might have been the year before that. The year after that, our samples weren't received, and then we've sent them in. So we're always kind of sending, leaving it to the last minute and sending it. So we never have the time to kind of brew anything special or malt anything special. It's normally just pull a sample out and off it goes.
Yeah. And that's good recognition. And I was over there for the awards this year as part of the conference they do at the North American Craft Maltsters Guild. And that was really good. A lot of people doing a lot of good things over there, and getting some good recognition and getting some good feedback as well. I think that's a number one reason that brewers enter beers into beer judging awards, is to get some feedback, and we do a similar thing, and it's always great to receive that. And
you forge some pretty close relationships with the American sort of craft maltsters as well. Is that right? And do you take ideas from them, or are they now looking over here and going, well, these guys are making the best malt, we need to go and visit them in Whitton and see what they're doing?
Yeah, so I'm on the board of the guild over there at the moment, and try and get over there every second year for the conference, and it's good catching up with everyone and over there and seeing what's happening in the industry, and see where things are going. They're in a very similar boat to Australia now, with craft beer and craft malt as well. Things are plateauing a bit there, so they're finding other ways to keep moving forward, and that's all exciting. We haven't had I've been to a lot of malt houses over there, and that's always a great thing, from very, very small to some of the bigger places, but haven't lured them over this side of the ocean yet, but
maybe Greystock 2026 to get someone over.
Possibly, yeah. We had the Richard guys.
We did too,
they spent nearly a week here, I think. Guys from Richard. So, and I guess just on the awards, not to take anything away from Brad and the team, they do a great job malting it, but I do feel we've got an unfair advantage in terms of the quality of grain we get to use. Australia hands down grows the best barley in anywhere in the world, and we kind of get to take, we use such a small amount of it that we really get to take the cream of the crop and keep that segregated, and so we kind of, I do feel we get a massive head start in that regard. But in terms of the award, I think it's a great acknowledgement for our farmers. It's as much of an achievement for them as us. I think they get equally excited about knowing that their grain has gone into that. So, it's great to win those awards. But I kind of like to think that it's expected based on that we're doing something wrong if we don't win one, because of how great the grain is we get to start with.
Do you know how it's judged? Are they biting on it and brewing tiny batches of beer with it, or?
Yeah, they do. There's 4 levels of judging. So they do. You've got some raw analysis to start with, and you've got some sensory analysis on the malt, and then you've got they make a little wort and do full sensory analysis on that, and then the top beers go in for judging after that. So it's quite a bit of work in the whole process. It's good.
Are there many farmers growing heirloom and some historic grains in the States, or have we got a kind of unique situation growing up around Voyager over here?
I think we've got, you probably more of an idea. I think we've got a very, really unique place here in terms of the access to irrigated farmland that we've got around us. Our background in farming as well. We kind of didn't. Having that farming background, the knowledge of cereal grain growing, and then having access to put fields in to breed them up, it's probably given us a bit of advantage in that space.
Definitely.
And I think there's a bit of stuff happening in terms of corn and some heirloom corn and that over in the States.
Yep.
I'm not too.
A few places are doing some breeding with local universities to breed some specific varieties suited to their particular area. So it's happening over there as well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we should wrap up soon, because we get to have a tour of the malt house. Before we do, if there was one thing you wish you knew when you started Voyager, what would it be?
For us, I suppose I heard a saying that the secret to happiness is solving problems, and theoretically, based on that, we should be the happiest people in the world, because it just seems to running a small business or starting a small business in a niche market that doesn't currently exist is extremely challenging, and we had plenty of things to deal with as we were starting off, and I can probably look back now, and it's easy in hindsight, I suppose, to look back and say, oh, I could have done all those things differently. But just the attitude of thinking about embracing these challenges and enjoying them, and rather than letting them get you down or really taking them personally, is I wish I probably could have taken a different attitude to all the setbacks and things along the way, which becomes much easier the more you suffer them, I suppose.
They're not problems; they're opportunities.
Yeah, I guess that's the way that you need to look at it, because otherwise it's just too much. That's probably something that I reflect on. Wish I knew at the start. Everyone tells you how hard it is, but you don't realise until you're in the grind and you're there.
And what about as sort of elder statesman now of the craft malting industry? I guess you've been giving this advice to Malacut, but if someone is looking at what you guys have done and wanting to get involved in doing something similar, what would be the one piece of advice you give them as they're starting out? Come and visit you at Voyager.
Come and visit us. You've got to be passionate about it. Like it's tough. Like particularly in those early days, as Brad said, no successful business talks about how easy it was when they started. Like and I guess for us it was that passion that that had us out here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Shoveling tons and tons of malt, and it was. Yeah, it was tough. You've got to be passionate about it. If you don't have a genuine passion for malt, agriculture, and beer, beer and spirits, then you're not
going to get through it.
So I guess going at it for the right reasons, and passion is the number one of those. If you think you're going to get in it to become get rich quick scheme, certainly not going to work out well.
And what about one wish or dream if you have for the Australian beer industry?
I've probably got two, actually. Can I have two?
Yeah, absolutely. You can have as many as you want.
Which edit the worst one out?
No, one I think that we leverage the agricultural stories a lot more. I think that there's so much untapped potential out there for any brewer that's using Australian grain. I think there's some stat it's like 98% of all cereal grain farms are still family owned mum and dad businesses. So the work, the passion that a lot of these farmers have, the risks and the sacrifices that they make in terms of the current climate and the environment, trying to grow grain so that we can have beer, I think is something that hops have done it to some extent, but certainly nowhere near where wine has. I want beer to get to the stage where when people think about beer or think about a brewery, they don't think about a factory. They think of fields of barley. So I think that's probably one of my wishes. And the other one, I think, is that the brewers don't forget the reason they got into the industry. I think there's some of that reason has maybe been a little bit blurred over the last couple of years, and they've started down some different paths in terms of chasing markets that they probably didn't had no plans of initially. And we're finding one of the best parts of my job is talking to brewers day in, day out. I still take the orders, a lot of them over the phone, and normally it's a 20-30 minute phone conversation talking about life and business and whatever else. And there is a lot of positivity out there at the moment with breweries, I think, that have realised that, hey, you know what, when we focus just on our tap room, brewing's a lot of fun. I actually really get a lot of thrill out, a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction out of what I do. I just kind of hope that the indie brewers don't forget, that reason they got into the industry in the first place. which is probably a good way of coming back to grain stock because
Such
that's
a
what it's
pro.
about. It's those two things.
Yeah.
I've done well there.
Oh, and I think beer is such a great platform for telling stories as well. Everyone knows beer, whether they drink it or not, and it's such a sort of ubiquitous, product. So I think, if we can use beer to tell that positive and, planet-changing stories, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Stu and Brad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
The Crafty Pints Pint of Origin Festival will be back in May 2026. Our Choose Your Own Adventure Beer Festival brings together thousands of beer lovers, hundreds of breweries, loads of Melbourne's best venues, and beers from all over the world. It's a real one-of-a-kind experience and hugely anticipated every year. Even better, it offers a massive platform for brands to connect with their customers in a meaningful way. If you want to engage with discerning drinkers, with beer venues and breweries, well, we'd love to chat to you about partnership opportunities. We've got the audience and the ideas to help you achieve your objectives at any budget level. Check out our partnership prospectus at pintoforigin.com or drop Craig, that's me, a note at craig@craftypint.com.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.